Hello friends, today we are going to have a look at advances in business cycle theory. Let us have the introduction first. The output of an economy increases, so the employment through which standard of living increases, and finally there is growth in gross national production, that is also known as GNP. The growth is steady, smooth or growing, can be measured and observed with the help of business cycle. The business cycle randomly moves, but this is not at a regular interval. It has been observed that there has been a long run upward trend in GNP and large short run fluctuations in the activity of an economy. These changes noticed in long run due to output, income, employment and prices. The trend of high income, output and employment has been called the period of expansion. The trend of low income, output and employment has been called as contraction. After every interval, the fluctuation occurs recurrent in the economy. So, the activity is called as the trade cycle or business cycle. Now, let us have the meaning of business cycle. The trend of any country's economic activity which randomly goes for expansion and contraction is called business cycle or trade cycle. Now understand the business cycle types. There are two types of business cycle, namely without growth trend and with growth trend. Let us first see business cycle without growth trend. Without growth trend shows fluctuation occurring, but the equilibrium remains stable. That is, level of growth of GNP remains stable as the time passes. We can see steady growth in the graph of business cycle. This clearly indicates that as time passes, the fluctuations occur and every time the GNP growth is steady. Now let us see business cycle with growth. With growth trend shows fluctuation occurring and equilibrium does not remain same. It moves up, which shows growth in GNP. This happens due to various reasons according to J.R. Hicks, like autonomous investment, due to growth in population and technological progress. Friends, now let us have a look at different phases of business cycle. There are three phases of business cycle, namely expansion, contraction and depression, trough and revival. Let us see them one by one. Expansion, also known as boom, upswing or prosperity. In this phase, people enjoy high standard of living. Price increases for the commodity which does not affect the population of an economy. As a result, there is increase in the employment and the output of various goods. There is no involuntary unemployment, but the frictional and structural unemployment prevails. The moment we have expansion, we have prosperity. There are zero gaps between potential gross national production and actual gross national production, finally has high production. As per Keynes, when the profit margin of the business reduces, then the investment reduces, and also the bankers reduce credits, then the businessman reduces the investments. As a result, downswings in the economy activity takes place. Let us have a look at contraction and depression. Now during this period, the price of output reduces due to aggregate demand reduces. As a result, the output goes down, which affects GNP, and finally the problem of unemployment increases. The direct effect can be seen on the investment, which is negative. As a result, the rate of interest goes down, and that means the demand for money holding increases. The excess capacity increases due to lack of demand for consumer goods to the demand for the capital goods. The excess capacity increases due to lack of demand for consumer goods to the demand for the capital goods. This brings contraction in the economy. And the third is trough and revival, that is lower turning point. The limit for the lowest level of economic activity is trough. This lasts for small period. During this period, without replacement, the capital stock is allowed to depreciate, which exists for short period. There is progress in technology, banking system starts expanding credit, investment increases due to emergence of scarcity of capital. The new technology brings recovery. Because of this excess capacity used fully, employment increases and finally the cycle gets completed. Now let us understand the features of business cycle. It is a cyclical moments of fluctuations. These movements or the changes are recurrent. The period of recurrent is irregular. Trade cycles occur in aggregate variables such as output, income, employment and prices. The industries of durable goods relatively have a wide fluctuation in output and employment, but small fluctuations in price. The industries of non-durable goods are relatively having wide fluctuation in price compared to output and employment. The trade cycles are not seasonal fluctuation. The variables like income, employment, output and prices move for some time in the same direction but at different rates. Business cycles are not secular trends. The waves of business cycle are cumulative in their effects. Let us now understand causes of business cycle. The people from the society during various jobs give various causes of trade cycle. These causes group in monetary, non-monetary factors and others are psychological factors. The economist Professor Samuelson groups business cycle into external and internal factors. Let us understand external factors first. The factors which are not involved in the economic system are called external factors. These factors are war, political events, gold discovery, population growth, innovations, migrations, discoveries, etc. These external factors bring boom in the trade cycle. Now let us understand the internal factors. The factors which are involved within the country are internal factors. Professor Haberler has categorized into the monetary factors and non-monetary factors. Examples are bank credits, excess savings, excess investments, competition, psychological causes, innovation and marginal efficiency of capital. Theories of business cycle, that is sunspot theory, given by Professor Stanley Jevons in the year 1875. This Professor Stanley has talked about the fluctuation in the agriculture sectors that takes place due to sunspot, that is due to change in the climate. He said agriculture sector is important because it serves the human beings in the form of food. It also contributes to the industrial sector for the further production. Hence, the agricultural output fluctuates, then the output of the other sectors also get affected because they are dependent on agriculture sector. The next is monetary theory of business cycle. Now, this theory was on gold standard. As time passed, economy started dealing in gold. The economists talked about the fluctuations in the money supply which affect the economic activity through changes in price level and the rate of interest. According to the economist Hawtrey, as quantity of money increases, the bank credit for investment also rises. Due to this, bank credit investment or supply of credit expands and also the money supply expands. As a result, rate of interest goes down. In this situation, the businessman borrows more money and investment done on new technology, innovative technique of production and finally, the output increases and expansion is observed. This expansion remains for short duration because as the demand increases, so the price rises. This price rise affects the output and investment to increase. On the other hand, as the price rises, the real value of idle money balance with the consumer gets reduced. The expansion process brings the trade deficits due to import increase and the outflow of gold increases, which brings reduction in money supply. Hence, the bank rate reduces and the rate of interest rises, which results less investments brings contraction. As the price falls, the output will fall, due to which people will hold larger money holdings. Thus, the contraction brings depression. Depression will stop in short duration because import reduces, gold comes in, a deficit in balance of trade reduces, and finally, this leads to expansion in business cycle. The next one is underconsumption theory, which was proposed by Malthus and Sismodi in the year 1930. They said that consumption of goods and consumption of services should be reduced, and then only the demand for goods and services produced will be generated sufficient. And also said that as per the consumer demand, the production should be done, otherwise overproduction brings recession in the market. This is not a recurring business cycle, but to explain that how a free enterprises economy enters a long run economy slowdown. They talked about the rich and the poor people of the society. They said richer get more income than the poor in the form of real property and the financial assets owned by themselves. So, they save more and consume less from their income compared to the poor. They have also consumed that during expansion, the rich people's income get increased compared to poor and the average propensity to save by the rich fall. That means the consumption demand falls and the process of saving increases. In this expansion period, saving increases, leads to more investment expenditure on capital, and later as these goods stock increases, stops the economy to produce more consumer goods and services. This leads to shortage, and to overcome from this, the economy expands and the supply of goods is more compared to the demand for goods, which leads to price fall. As the price falls, the production reduces and the economic activity of an economy goes into recession. The next one is overinvestment theory by Professor Hayek. He discussed on monetary forces which show fluctuations in investment. He believed that at present the economy is in recession and businessman demands for bank credit which is very low. This pushes down the money rate of interest below the natural rate. In this situation, the businessman will be able to borrow money and go for capital goods investment. This leads to huge output employment generation, increase in saving, increase in income, and finally expansion of the economy and the production of consumer good rises. As for the investment, businessman has taken the advantage of bank reserve and this excess bank reserve comes to an end. The bank credit goes up and the supply of a credit in front of demand is less, which brings money rate of interest to go up than the natural rate of income. This brings the losses for the businessman. This situation shows the overinvestment, less savings, need for finance and decline in investment. This causes the income and consumption to fall and finally the economy goes down. The next one is overinvestment theory by Wicksell. Wicksell's overinvestment theory is based on non-monetary aspects. He says that as the investment increases and brings the innovation, opening of new market by the entrepreneurs is the cause of cyclical fluctuation and brings the profit for them. This profit can be generated by reducing cost or increasing demand for the products. Expansion causes due to bank credit gets lower, so the investment rises, and after some period overinvestment can be seen due to lack of bank credit, which lowers the income and consumption, brings the recession. Later, as again the innovation takes place, the economy expands. Now let us move forward to Keynes' theory of business cycle. This theory is based on the theory developed by himself, general theory of employment, interest and money. He said the level of aggregate effective demand determines the level of income, output and employment. If the aggregate demand is large, then the entrepreneurs will get more profit and they will produce more. As the production increases, the problem of unemployment will be solved and the optimum utilization of material is observed. The reverse can be seen as the aggregate demand will be lower. Hence, the expansion and contraction observes respectively. These fluctuations of aggregate demand depend upon the aggregate expenditure of consumer for the consumer goods and entrepreneur investment for consumer goods, materials and capital assets. He said, in short run, the propensity to consume is being more or less stable. The fluctuation of aggregate effective demand primarily depends upon investment demand, so the business cycle fluctuates. He indicated three important points for the fluctuations. Firstly, he said the fluctuation occurs in the business cycle due to change in the aggregate demand, which bring about changes in economic activity. Secondly, he said due to changes in expectation for profit by the businessman, the investment fluctuation occurs. And finally, he kept multiplier theory to explain the change in investment brings change in income and employment. The next one is Samuelson's model of business cycle. Samuelson says that the cyclical fluctuation in the economy occurs due to the interaction between the multiplier and the accelerator. The level of investment increases, income rises by a smaller amount and this depends upon the value of the multiplier. This helps in income rise, which leads to further investment to rise by the acceleration effect. As the income increases, the aggregate demand for goods and service rises. To fulfill the need of aggregate demands of an economy, it needs more capital goods which make extra investment. So, he says investment and income are one of the mutual interaction. Investment affect income and this affect investment demand, and the process of income and employment have a cyclical manner fluctuation. Samuelson combined accelerator with Keynesian multiplier and showed the effect with chart. Delta y is the increase in income, 1 divided by 1 minus MPC is the size of multiplier, where MPC is the marginal propensity to consume. Delta ID is increase in induced income, where V is equal to size of accelerator. In this illustration, increase in autonomous investment, that is delta IA, leads to increase in income through multiplier, that is delta Y is equal to delta IA into 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. Now, this further leads to increase in induced investment through accelerator, delta ID is equal to V delta Y. This gives aggregate demand and income increase by an even larger amount. In the free private enterprise economy, the fluctuation is caused by investment. The instability occurs due to accelerator and multiplier interaction. The variation in the aggregate demand gives rise to multiplier effect, which depends on the marginal propensity to consume. As the consumption, income and output rises, by the multiplier effect further changes in investment occurs, and to the extent the investment depends upon the capital output ratio. To conclude, the interaction between the multiplier and the accelerator gives rise to the business cycles without any influence of external factors. The pattern of fluctuation depends upon the magnitudes of marginal propensity to consume and capital output ratio. Now, let us understand the advances in business cycle theory. New two theories have been introduced in the recent time, namely the real business cycle theory and new Keynesian economics. These theories have explained short run fluctuations in output and employment, the response of monetary and fiscal policy for business cycle fluctuation. First, the theory of real business cycle. This theory is based on few assumptions. Even in short run, prices are fully flexible. The price itself adjusts to clear the market. The nominal variables as supply of money and level of price do not influence the real variable as output and employment. The technological progress and economic growth occurs unevenly. This theory emphasizes real changes in the production technologies of the economy. According to the assumptions, the technological progress and economic growth unevenly occurs. To explain this theory, they have taken a story of Robinson Crusoe, who was a sailor and staying alone in a desert island. And life of his is simple, then also he has to make many economic decisions regarding changes to be brought according to circumstances. He does only a few activities, swimming at his island, enjoying the leisure, and rest of time he works. He catches fishes or collects winds to make fishing net. If noticed, both are the goods and valuable goods. The fish for the consumption and the winds net for the investment. The calculation of gross domestic production, that is GDP, of Crusoe's island will be number of fishes caught and number of winds net prepared. The result says that Crusoe is optimizing the time properly in his daily activity. One day, if school of fishes passes, then the GDP rises for two reasons. Firstly, productivity rises, that is catches more fishes, and secondly, his employment rises and he decides to reduce the productivity, temporarily enjoys the leisure more. Here the economy is booming. If a storm comes for a day and make an outdoor activity difficult, then the productivity falls. This happens each hour spending for fishing and making nets gives a smaller amount of output, and here he thinks to spend less time on working and wait for the storm gets out of his hut. In this situation, GDP falls due to production falls, and to conclude, the economy contracts or faces recession. The other situation says Crusoe is attacked by natives, he defends himself, gets less time for leisure, and he reduces fishing and makes net more for survival. That means the GDP goes up as the production increases. Here there is a wartime boom. Through this story, the expansion and recession happen because of its simplicity. The fluctuation in the output employment, consumption, investment and productivity, these all are natural and desirable response of an individual person to the inevitable changes in his environment. The monetary policy, sticky prices or market failure have nothing to do with the fluctuation of the island economy. The economist says that according to the situation or the circumstances, the economy fluctuates. This theory of business cycle puts more emphasis on the idea that the labor supply depends on the incentives provided to them. According to the circumstances, workers work more when they get the high incentives and vice versa, and temporarily ignores to the work for short period. The reallocation of overtime work is called intertemporal substitution of labor. Intertemporal relative wage is equal to 1 plus R multiplied by W1 divided by W2. From this formula, W1 is the wage of first summer and W2 is the wage of second summer. On the basis of this, the intertemporal relative wage can be calculated. If a person has the option of working overtime in the first summer or the second summer, then he chooses the first summer to work, because if he saves the amount, then he receives interest on it compared to earning in the second summer. If he receives more incentives in second summer compared to the wage earned plus the rate of the interest of first summer, then he will choose to work in second summer. According to this theory, the labor performs on the basis of cost benefit analysis. In short, wage is high, rate of interest is high, and so it is good time to work. The reverse situation, low wages and low interest rate, time of leisure. The next point is new Keynesian economics. When the prices and wages remain sticky, then in short run fluctuation in output and employment shows various deviations from the natural rate. This was believed by various economists. The new Keynesian research has tried to explain by examining the macroeconomics of price adjustment with the help of three theories which are discussed here: small menu cost and aggregate demand externality. There are various externalities for the price adjustment. According to Albert Slighty, when one firm reduces the price, everywhere price level fall. This raises the real money balance with the consumer and increases the aggregate demand. This benefits the other firms, and this known as aggregate demand externality. The prices do not adjust immediately for one reason, that is, in short run there is cost to price adjustment. The cost to price means the various expenditures done to aware the customer, sales staff, etc. about the new prices. The costs of changing prices are menu cost. This leads firms to adjust prices not continuously but intermittently. Keynes said that there are externalities to price adjustment which raises real money balances. When there is rise in real money balance, it expands aggregate income. The expansion raises the demand for the product of all the firms. The macroeconomic impact of one single firm's price adjustment on the demand for all other firms is called an aggregate demand externality. When the aggregate demand externality is present, then small menu cost makes the price sticky and these cost large to society. He also said that while making a decision, the firm ignores the externality. This may decide not to pay the menu cost and cut its prices, but price cut is socially desirable. Finally, the sticky prices may be optimal for those second prices, even though they are undesirable for the economy as a whole. The next is recession as coordination failure. Some of the Keynesian economists think that recession as a result of lack of coordination among economic decision makers. During the recession, the output is low, workers are unemployed and the factories sit idle. The optimum utilization of resources should be done. If the society is unable to come out with feasible and preferred by everyone decision, then the member of the society has failed to coordinate their behavior in some way. The problem of coordination arises in the setting of wages and prices. Recession as coordination failures have parables. Firstly, the economy is made up of two firms. When there is the fall in the money supply, the firm decides to cut prices, so to earn more profit. Profit does not depend on price cut, but also the decision taken by the other firms. If none of the firm cuts price, then real money balance reduces, hit the recession and earns little profit. If both the firms cut price, then real money balance increases, recession avoided and earns more profit. If one firm reduces its prices and the other do not, then recession hits and price cut firm will earn less compared to the other firm which avoids cutting the price. This means one firm cuts its price and helps other firm to earn more profit. The outcome of this theory is both the firms will cut a price for preferable outcome in which each firm makes good profit. On the other hand, if expects other firm to maintain the price, both will maintain and get result, both will earn similar profit. The next is the staggering of wages and prices. At the same time, in the economy, everybody does not change the prices and wages. The adjustment of both is staggered. This staggering reduces the speed in the process of coordination and price adjustment. Staggering makes the overall level of wages and prices adjust gradually, even when individual wages and prices changes frequently. Now let us summarize at the end. In this chapter, we have studied the meaning of business cycle, various theories of business cycle which talks about different phases of an economy, and the two new theories of advances in business cycle theories, that is the real business cycle theory and the new Keynesian economics. Both the theories have explained about the short run fluctuation in output and employment. Thank you.